Hey everybody, it's John Smale again. This is the Smalespace podcast series that I started back pre-COVID many months ago. Uh, you can tell how long it's been. I just recorded a podcast and I went to play it back and I realized I've been away from it so long I forgot to turn the volume up, on my microphone. So here I go again. Now, uh, people have been writing me and letting me know, hey, where have you been? I mean, have you decided not to do this anymore? When are you going to do another broadcast? And I thought, well, golly, I don't, I'm not feeling particularly upbeat these days, although I, my empathy is such that I feel very bad for those in a worse condition than me. Patty and I have been sequestered or landlocked or whatever you want to say, isolated since St. Patrick's Day, and it is getting a little boring in some ways, inspirational in others. I'm very impressed with the way my friends and other people I know and people that I don't know are really doing some wonderful things for their communities and for the health and betterment of mankind. I have friends that are making face shields and face masks and hand sanitizers and things like that. And then on an extreme tangent, my son my son Trevor and his friends Andrew and David have really stepped up the plate, and they've they're engineers and they've invented 9 versions, not single-handedly, because this is an open source project. Open source means free to all and available to all. The data and the design, so that your company, your country, your community can build ventilators, whether they're sophisticated ones that cost in the low 100s to the more sophisticated versions that cost in the low thousands, as opposed to the medical and hospital community that are used to paying mega huge bucks for a ventilator. And let's face it, ventilators are key components of the of the COVID uh, healing process, as it were. Now, uh, so hats off to those boys that have given their time, their energy, their creative spirit, and their generosity of spirit to help others, and with no remuneration. And that to me is are those are heroes. Now, I I'm a commercial interior designer, and I've reached out to try and help people with their, I suppose, return to normal, whatever that is. And it is so different in so many instances, and it is such a new world we're going to be entering into. And whether it's a golf course or a restaurant or a landscape company, a hair salon, a an office, I deal with all these people, and they're all hurting badly. And once again, this is where my empathy kicks in: is that I feel bad for those less fortunate than me. It is a changing landscape. I think there's going to be a real shift in consumer spending and shopping habits for sure. When this is over, many consumers like us will have a newfound sense of thrift. It's going to be the operative word, is thrift, and for many, savings are depleted. Credit cards and lines of credit are extended and stretched, and our RSP and savings plans. I mean, let's face it, they're being decimated, and I feel terrible about it. I mean, the new norm will be dollar stores, repopularized, value grocers, secondhand clothing stores, things like that, where will be more into vogue. And I think people will be thinking twice before spending. and they'll be making products last longer. They'll be recycling, reusing, and repairing like we used to do, I suppose, a few generations ago at least. All these factors are going to make for a new retail landscape, and it's further going to polarize a society between the wealthy and the wealth less, those of less wealth, of which I fall into that category. Some people have enjoyed living a simpler life during this COVID virus episodes that we're living through, and they're finding that they're spending a lot less money because there's fewer places to spend it, obviously. And I think that people are going to continue along that line. I don't think it'll be a vortex. I think it'll just be a flattening of the economy in that sense, that we won't see back to normal growth. You know, that huge spike that I recall after 9/11, for example, because it was, you know, get out there and spend again and get the economy vibrant. But that was 9/11, and this is so different because this is a health issue. It's not an act of terrorism. It's a whole different paradigm. And so also with this higher unemployment rate and this shift to thrift is that we don't know how far down the road this economic recession is heading, and many are predicting, of course, a depression. And I can't help but think about the Great Depression that my parents lived through. And my mom and dad were very practical people. They both came from large families and had to live their lives. It wasn't a plan. It was just the way they did it, was being frugal and planning things and not spending more than you make and all those things. Now, our world has gone through a strange bubble, vortex, whatever you spiral, whatever you want to call it. I think we got out of hand. I don't mean just raping the environment and being ignorant that way. I mean, we wanted to consume. We wanted things that other people had. We wanted a better life. We wanted perhaps the fancier car, perhaps the bigger truck, perhaps the bigger home, or toys. Let's call them toys in some instances, and expensive toys at that. And I think we got ourselves into a buying frenzy because we saw other people doing it. It's a herd mentality. It's your peer group. It's wanting to appear successful. And I think that gets our values mixed up. And I think our values are in here. They're not up here because that can get all crazy. Speaking of crazy, have you heard the term COVID brain? I mean, it just, because we're not practicing our skills as much these days, we're lapsing in other ways. And some people are saying they're getting COVID memory, which is sort of a lazy memory, I suppose. Now, this condition that we're in, this economic condition, has the possibility of creating a very unhealthy industry where we are left with only large retailers, for example, or large restaurant chains, or anything large like suppliers or service providers. And too much power will be given to a select few if we're not careful. And maybe it's not just a case of being careful. It's maybe the large and the cash-rich companies can ride this out and survive. Those smaller business people that have mortgages or leases and not extended cash supplies are going to find themselves in trouble. And it worries me that this reduced service is going to create an oligarchy within the business community where choices will be reduced, services will be reduced, and prices can be inflated by the select few that survive this, because they will also impact jobs in a big way, because the larger companies can automate and they can e-commerce, whereas the smaller uh, business, and this is a country, this is a continent, this is a world built on the small business model. And that's what I fear, because I love small business. I'm a small businessman and I deal with small business people on a day to day basis. They're the fabric of our community. They're the ones that uh, sponsor charities and sports of, uh, you know, amateur sports teams. And, uh, as a member of the Rotary Club of Belleville, I know how important small business is and the money that we raise for charities, because it was the safety net in many cases where the government couldn't support initiatives that needed support. And that's rather sad, because the government, as much as they are trying to bail people out, it's really our money that they're spending. And that makes me fearful too, is that someone has to pay the piper eventually, and we're accumulating national debt to do this. But we have no choice. We have to uh, save where we can save people, businesses, and people's income. This is the job of government in dire times. On the brighter side, and those who know me know that I always like to look for the brighter side. I like to think of myself as being optimistic and full of hope. Is that we will have a renewed sense of collectivism, where we act more as a society, and we can help each other more and more by doing things like shopping locally, back to this community feeling again. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to look at ways to help others and to reach out to those in need, those less fortunate, those who need company, those who need support, moral support, those who need a hand up at a very difficult time. And this time may get more trying. We're through the third month. People are talking about 18 months. They're talking about 2 years. 2 years, folks. I mean, this is a journey. It's not a short little trip through a minor crisis. This seems to be the unprecedented 100-year storm that we didn't see coming. And now that it's here and it's upon us, it really calls out for us to be the best that we can be for our family, for our friends, and for strangers, for our larger community. And I'm not proselytizing, I'm not preaching or suggesting that you take any path that you don't want to take, but I do have a hope that we become better, stronger people by having a sense of community. And let's not forget that word love. I mean, it can't be overused. I mean, we have to dig deep into our hearts and dig deep into our pockets and just dig deep into our souls and say, hey, we are in this together. Like it or not, it's not easy. Nothing is easy. This is especially not easy. And let's maybe have a smile. Let's have a group hug, like a virtual hug, like I'm giving you right now. And let's, for the moment, smile and say, boy, yeah, there is glimmer in all this, and there is hope. Someday we'll laugh and congregate again and hang out and have meals together. But for now, we are in a situation like we've never been in before, and I hope we never have to keep repeating this. And I hope by being safe, by being conscientious, by being loving, that we can survive this and strive and build a better community than what we had before. And that's my hope. I'm trying to end on a smile. I was not nervous. I was sort of, what am I, what do I say to people when I'm not sure how I feel myself? How do other people feel out there? I'm sure they're feeling the same way as I feel. A bit lost, a bit scared, nervous, and hopeful. That's what I want to leave you with, hopeful. And I'll talk to you soon. We'll pick up a thread on this somewhere. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and how you're getting through this.